Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first study guide of the year. We are going to go ahead and go through each question, and I might go through here quickly at times, but at least you can pause or fast forward to the questions that you need to get to see the answers. Our first question, Fisher here is graphing these 4 points. And so what you're supposed to do is graph them yourself, and hopefully it looks like a rectangle. However, when we made these, we realized that it wasn't exactly a perfect rectangle, but it comes really close. So to help me, I'm going to number my graph and my axes so I know what I'm doing. 8, I might have to go off a little bit or graph it on a separate piece of graph paper. And then from there, I can start graphing. Here's my y-axis here. It's important to know that this is your x and this is your y. Stand tall, or railroad crossing, train travels that way. And now I can pretty much graph what I need to graph. So my y values here, remember going up is positive and going down is negative numbers. All right, so from there I can start graphing. A is at -1, which is right here. So 1 back from the origin. So 1 and then down 2. And so my first dot is right there. And then I have 2, -6 for B. I forgot to label this A, probably important to do that. And then I have 2, -6, which over 2 down to 6, put a dot, there's my B, and then I go 8, 2. This is the one that goes a little bit off, so that's okay. This is, imagine that this is an 8, here's my 8 and up 2, there's my dot, and that is C. And then finally I have 5, 4, so over 5, up 1, 2, 3, 4, and there is my D. And so this is good to graph these 4 points. I'm gonna kind of turn it sideways here, and I'm gonna use my Crayola box because I don't have a ruler nearby. But you know what? It's a straight edge, so it works. So once I do that, I'm gonna have something you'll already probably notice that it's not exactly a rectangle because it doesn't have those 90-degree angles like we should. But for the most part, we got our 4 points, and if you graph it like this, you got it correct. So this would be 4 points. So good job if you got all 4 of those. All right, on the next one, he is graphing some more rectangles, but it's missing a point. So we have to determine where that missing point is. So if I have 3 up 2, would be right here, and that's E. And 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't go up at all. That's our F. Over 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Down to 1, 2. This is our G right here. And so to make this come close to a rectangle, notice how for these 2 points, it's kind of like I go down to over 2, like this, kind of imaginary corner here. I'm gonna do the same here, down to over 2. I'm gonna put a dot right here, and this comes pretty close to a rectangle. So if you put it somewhere around here, you probably got that point correct. So if I connect all points, I've got something that kind of looks like that. If you have 4, -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, -1's right here. Zoom in a little bit. So 4, -1, it's right there. 0, 5, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. And 3, 7, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so you got something that kind of looks like this. And so our next point would be approximately right here, which is at the point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, comma 1. So right around there would make our rectangle that you see here. And each one of those would also be 4 points or so because you graphed all 3 and then you found the missing one. We're really looking for, we want you to be able to tell us the coordinates for both of these points here that you had. All right, next question. We have, let's see, number 2. And this one, remember I told you to change this to your grade on this over here. And then time would be down here below. And yesterday, I know in my class we talked about how much is like a lot. And so that was kind of confusing, like what does much mean on this test? But much means a lot. I think your actual test tomorrow will say something a little bit different or that makes sense. So W here is when we study a lot and we get a high grade. So if you're looking at your x-axis, this is your time studying. That means this is 0. And so the more you move over here, the higher you get for your time studying. So if we study a lot, which will be down on this end, and we get a high grade, then we would probably put W somewhere up here because it's time studying a lot, good grade, there's where you're gonna go, because the higher you get on your y-axis, the higher grade you get. For B, you study a little, so maybe down here, because you haven't studied much. If you think about it between like a 0 and 100, you know, a little bit would be down here. And then you get a low grade, so somewhere down here in this corner would be your B. And then finally, if you study a lot, but you get a low grade, you're going to have something like this. So that is would be around 3 points for that. Okay. Turning it over here, we have this ice cream question. And we always want to somehow put things into words as far as the relationship between these two axes. So here's our temperature, and so our temperature is going on our x, and our sales are on our left. And it looks like, if I'm looking at this, you know, when I have a low temperature, my sales are not that much. I don't sell a lot of ice cream, which makes sense because the colder it is, usually people don't buy as much ice cream. But in the summertime, when it's really hot, you sell a lot of ice cream. I mean, that's when you see the ice cream trucks and all those things because it's hot. So when we're writing a sentence about it, we've got to be sure that we say something between, you know, the temperature and the sales. So we might say something like, as the sales increase, and remember increase means go up. Okay, so as the sales, I just messed it up. As the temperature increases, see, even teachers make mistakes too. As the temperature increases, so does I should say so do if I'm an English teacher. So do the sales. If you can read my scribbles. So as the temperature increases, that means as the temperature goes up, the sales go up. So, which makes sense. And I usually want some reason why that happens. So you might say something like, I think there are more sales because people want to cool down with ice cream. And you might have something else that makes sense for the question, but the biggest thing is you told us the relationship between the temperature and the sales. So as the temperature goes up, the sales increase. All right, for the next question, we have our tile patterns here. And I remember that when I was working with my class, I had them look for some patterns. And so the first thing that I see here is this loner 1 up here. All right, kind of by itself. I see that on every single one of them. And then the second thing I see is I see that this little part right here, like the orange section, looks like it goes up by 1 each time. And I always want to see the relationship between, the figure number, which is 2, and all of these pieces. So this one blue stays the same, but the figure number, notice how if this is 2, the orange part is 1. If this is 3, the orange part is 2. If this is 4, the orange part is 3. So I see that this little shoe, or whatever you want to call it, is 1 less than the figure number. And then when we look at the inside, or in this pink section, that's why highlighters are kind of nice. I see, once again, I try to find any relationship. So I see that the relationship might be that the width of it is always 1 more than the figure number. So figure number is 2, width is 3. Figure number is 3, width is 4. Figure number 4, width is 5. And they're always 2 tall. So that doesn't change. So as we're going along here, I just kind of build, the 5th and 6th. So I know the 5th is going to have 4 of the oranges. I'm going to try to draw this my best without graph paper here. So I've got 4 of my orange section, right? And then I have, after that, I have something that's 2 high, and it's going to be 6 wide. So 2 high, 6 wide, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we have that lone little 1 up there, and that will continue our pattern. So figure 5, and figure 6 will be 5 of my boot, my orange. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I have 2 high, and it's going to be 7 long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and our little top. So that's figure 6. All right. All right, so that's the first thing. Now, the pattern is growing, and there's a lot of ways to describe it. I'm not going to write all the ways down. Like, I could have said something like, the top section stays the same, and if you highlighted things to explain, you could have represented it as saying like the orange section or the pink section, or it's growing by some number of tiles each time. So this is when it's good to make a table, which will also help us with C. So the next part 2, I will explain B and C and how we do that.